Hey everybody, and welcome back to David's Marvelous Pigments. We're going to be painting the Veiled Wizard from the Spellblades Wildspire, the Wildspire Spellblade set. Um, and the Veiled Wizard is going to be used as a um, changeling rogue in a campaign coming up shortly. Campaign's already started, but just getting these pieces finalized for it for my kids. So hopefully, my son who will be using this piece will enjoy it for his Changeling Rogue. I thought of this for the Changeling Rogue because um, he's not wearing heavy armor. Kind of looks like he could be roguish. Does have that fireball in the one hand, but given that he's got that sword, kind of looks roguish, and the piece has a mask or a scarf or cloak or something covering his face. And as changelings can shapeshift, you don't necessarily know what they really look like, and you don't know what this guy looks like. So we're going to be using him for a changeling rogue in a campaign for my son. Now, um, in this particular video, you'll notice right off that things are a little bit different. First, the most obvious one is I'm holding a little grip rather than holding the mini itself, which is a great new tool I have. This grip was a gift over the holidays, um, and the great thing about it is I don't have to touch the mini while painting. That's got three main benefits. Um, the first one, the the least beneficial, is that I'm not going to get paint on my hands, not nearly as much, because I'm not holding the mini. I don't have to actually touch it at all while painting. Um, so that's really helpful. Keeps it's a little bit easier to clean up for me. Not that getting paint on my fingers is a big deal at all, but that was the first benefit. The next benefit is that since I'm not holding it and touching it, not getting the paint on me, I'm also not smudging the paint on the mini. And so as I'm painting, I can just put the paint on. I don't have to wait for a specific spot to dry before I adjust my hands and hold it by that spot so I can paint another spot. It just makes streamlines the whole painting process and is a lot easier that way. I think the biggest benefit, though, is that since I get to hold this grip in a very natural way, rather than kind of holding this mini between two fingers and trying not to really touch it very much as I'm holding it, I don't get nearly as much fatigue in my hands. I can hold the mini for a lot longer. I don't have to set it down and take a little break partway through, anything like that. So it's just a lot easier to actually paint my mini. Also, another little cool feature with this, a couple other features, you'll notice that the top can spin a little bit. So I can just hold the grip in my hand and then kind of just spin the top. And get a new angle on the piece. I do find myself a lot of the time actually spinning the whole grip in my hand rather than just the top, but both work, and it's really um, much easier on your hand. So I don't get my hands don't get tired nearly as quickly. My right hand that I actually paint with does get tired now and again from just painting small details, but that's to be expected. Also, the base of the grip is magnetic, and it came with a little metal plate that you can kind of stick to your table. I have it underneath my tablecloth there, and I can just set the grip right on that, and then it's not going to get knocked over because that magnet really holds it in place really well. And that's really helpful, just making the painting process easier and less messy. And in turn, I'm not smudging the paint on the mini, so I get a better product overall, better piece. So I'm really, really happy about that. Um, the next thing I got as a gift over the holidays was that paint tray. Uh, Again, the one thing I was using before wasn't a problem. It was just a plastic lid to an old ice cream tub. It worked great. It was just fine. It was something I had in the house, and I used it. It was just fine. The problem with that, though, was that when I was done painting, any leftover paint on it, I just had to throw away. I just wipe off the excess, throw it in the trash, and then wash off the lid so that it was clean and ready for the next time I painted. Now, with this tray is specifically designed so that the lid seals very tightly, so that you just put a couple of spritz. I live in a very dry climate, so I usually actually add a couple of spritzes into the dry tray and then put the lid on, just so there's a little bit of moisture in there so that nothing dries out. But then there's also a wet tray. You don't see it in the background here. You can kind of see where my hand goes off the screen, getting more paint on the brush. I'm getting it off of that wet tray, where I've done a lot of mixing for the colors. And that wet tray has a little sponge with a paper on it that kind of lets the moisture come up from the bottom, helps keep the paints moist and flowing, good consistency. So when I paint, they're not having just a nice consistency in the paint. But also I can put the lid on that and it doesn't dry out. I can come back, paint the next day. I think I've even gone a couple of days between sometimes, and the paints are still in a good position where I can use them, and they're not totally dried out. So that's been wonderful. If I don't put any water in the dry tray, though, those paints will dry out after a couple of days, even with the lid on. But I put a couple of squirts in there, put the lid on, and I'm good to go for a couple of days until I need to come back and paint. So I'm not throwing away as much paint, and that's great. Save a little cash here and there just by not throwing away my paints. So that'll be really helpful in the long run. Those are the only things I had when I painted this mini. Just the hand grip there and those paint trays. And those are huge helps. I think this piece came out really nice because of that. I did, though, also buy myself a couple of other products that I'm finding very helpful. One is a wash. What a wash is a very, very thin paint. It's almost like the consistency of water. And calling it a paint is kind of misleading. If you don't, for those of you who don't know what a wash is, some people make their own by just taking a couple of drops of paint and then putting in a ton of water and really diluting that paint to an extreme amount. The point of a wash is that you will dip your mini after it's dried. You dip it in the wash, shake off any excess wash there, and then take a dry brush and kind of wick away the excess wash off of it, so that there's only really, it gets into the crevices, into the cracks, and it can really look like shadow. You see it as if it's a shadow in there. And I find that very helpful. So you can see on this particular piece, on the base, there's cracks on the base. So it looks like he's on like a cobblestone path. The wash would sink in there and it would look like it's either dirt or grout or shadow in those cracks. Whereas in what I've been doing, I've just painted it with one color and a dark color first, let that dry, and then I'll take a lighter gray and paint on top of it so I can try and get that same effect. Now, just putting a wash on it, you can dip it in there, or you can just soak up the wash into your brush and paint it into those cracks after. Either way, that will work. So, but the wash has been very helpful. I've used it on, I've gone back to some old pieces and done that. And it's worked very well. I think my favorite thing I got, though, was a set of brushes, really nice brushes. These ones just came with the paints. They're not great quality, but they're fine. I had no complaints about them, but I got some nice ones, particularly some very fine ones, so I can do some painting of detail that I wasn't able to do before. So like on this piece, you can see like the bags belt pouches that he's got, I just kind of do them all one color. Now I can do some more detail work. And specifically, I can do eyes and faces on these small minis that I wasn't able to do before. And it's coming out very nice with these new brushes that I have. So all in all, I'm really pleased with the new tools that I have and I'm going to be using in my painting moving forward. Hopefully that helps out in my final products. So thanks again for watching. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. It really helps. And like the video, send it to friends you may know who are interested in miniatures, painting, or talking D&D. And thanks again.